Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
All right, who gets the honors today to lead us off here this morning? We're going to go with the green and gold here. The Packers pick it up a 27-13 victory over the Detroit Lions yesterday. And I want to kind of start it off with the defense, because I think that's where we kind of have to, kind of tip our caps to the performance that the defense had yesterday. Now, I don't know how much I thought it would be a big effect for the Lions, but I don't want to kind of overreact too much. And I know it's week one and it's Monday. You're going to have some overreaction Monday stuff. I understand that. I get that. We're probably going to do that here a little bit too. But it sure looked like, from a Lions perspective, that maybe, they missed out on their offensive coordinators, or they're both their coordinators, their offensive coordinator and their defensive coordinator a little bit. Now they're going to have time to get adjusted. But this is again a reason why I was okay with opening up against Detroit in week one, especially at home. And I know a lot of people, I wish we could have had Detroit later on in the season when it's cold and all that, but I kind of wanted them now. I like that we had them now because they had these new coordinators coming in, and you thought maybe if there was going to be a little bit of adjustment period to go, you'd rather have it early before they kind of found the rhythm and got into a groove here a little bit. So maybe that's going to be the case coming up here for the Lions as they still try to kind of figure everything out here. But, specifically on the defensive side, I look at what the defensive line did and holding that running game, holding Montgomery and Gibbs from a rushing standpoint. 11 carries for 25 yards for David Montgomery. His long was 6 yards. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 carries, 19 yards. His long was 4. He had 9 carries and 19 yards, and his long was 14. You could do the math on that. Both those guys averaging under 3 yards per carry. Montgomery, 2.3 yards per carry. Gibbs, 2.1 yards per carry. 22 total carries for Detroit. 46 yards. For all the talk, and I get it, and rightfully so, with no Kenny Clark, how would the run defense look like? Credit to those guys, credit to the Kobe Woodens, the Devontae Wyatts, the Stackhouse, the Brooks, those guys for stepping up and having a fantastic day. For the linebackers, Cooper and Quay Walker, for helping out over there too. It was setting the tone. We talked about it on Friday, keys to victory net, who's going to win in the trenches, and I think you can make the case that the Packers, both on the offensive line and on the defensive line, won in the trenches. They kept Jordan Love clean, and the Packers' defensive front got after Jared Goff and stopped the run. That was awesome to see, and I think you give a ton of credit to the players, but you also give a ton of credit to new defensive line coach DeMarcus Covington. He got that group ready to go, prepared. He got them going. I know it's only week one, and I don't want to put all my eggs in this one basket and ready to proclaim anything, but that gave us a glimpse of what this defensive line could do. And if that's the bar, they set that bar, that could be something. I mean, it sure looks like they've already made strides compared to last year. Again, I don't want to overreact too much from the first game and from week one, but we know how that defensive line group performed last year. And they come into this thing and hold Montgomery and Gibbs to 40-some yards rushing total between the two. You factor in Jameson Williams had 3 yards, and Jared Goff technically had -1. So 42 yards total between Montgomery and Gibbs. That's pretty darn impressive. That's really impressive. And that's a credit to the players, and that is a credit to Covington for getting his group ready and prepared, and a credit to Jeff Hafley, the defensive coordinator, for for the game plan and the calls that he had. Yeah, the Lions' short passing game kind of burned Green Bay a little bit, especially in the first half. And we talked about that as being a key matchup, a key to victory to try to limit that. But Green Bay held them out of the end zone. Detroit made a few trips to the red zone, but Green Bay held them out of the end zone and got a pick right before the half. How big was that play before the end of the first half? The pressure from Micah Parsons and the awesome break on the ball from Evan Williams. We know Green Bay wants to lead the league in turnovers. That's one of their goals. It was one of their goals last year. They want to be a turnover machine, and they were a top 5 team last year in turnovers. And we know a focus this year is trying to maybe force some more fumbles. But they'll take picks too. But you have to wonder just how big of a play that was, considering too that Detroit got the ball after halftime. They could have doubled up. And to see that play, that was pretty awesome. And I think it was a big play in the overall outcome of the game, because let's just say, okay, say Detroit scores a touchdown there. They're down 7 heading into the half because there's a 17-3 at halftime. Heck, maybe even if they score a field goal there, maybe they get a little bit of momentum riding into the half when they get that ball back. They get a field goal in the third, but that was it. Outside the garbage touchdown in the fourth. Was the defense 100% perfect? No. They weren't 100% perfect. Sam Laporta gave them some issues. 9 targets, 6 catches, 79 yards. A lot of times, especially in that first half, you got to give the Lions credit. They were converting on some third downs and extending those drives. I mean, we talked about time of possession being a big key to this game, a factor to this game. In Detroit, they were, especially in that first half, they were winning that thing. They were kind of dominating in that thing. I mean, Detroit, 35 minutes, 25 seconds, compared to Green Bay's 24 minutes and 35 seconds. But Detroit was converting on those thirds. They were extending those drives. But, again, credit to the Packers defense for keeping them out of the end zone. And a little bit probably played in the hands when you have Green Bay going 2 plays and scoring a touchdown there too. So you're just giving the ball right back to the offense. But you take that any day of the week. But I was so impressed with that front. I mean, we have these high expectations for this front now with Micah Parsons coming in. And, it's like, it's going to be, Rashawn Gary's going to benefit from this, and the corners are going to benefit from this. The secondary is going to benefit from this. We saw glimpses of that. And I say glimpses because Micah Parsons was on this snap count. But we saw the impact that he can have. Double teams, chips. That's opening up the doors for others. Rashawn Gary, 1.5 sacks. Lucas Van Ness, he just got credit for a half sack, but I thought he was awesome in this game too. And we've talked about the interior defensive line. Devontae Wyatt, 3 tackles for losses and a sack. That drive where Detroit was backed up, and I thought, it did look like a safety at first. I thought Gene Steratore was awesome in explaining it. But that drive, those 3 plays, when was the last time that we saw a Packers defense in those 3 plays just overtake an offensive line and just dominate that team? Those 3 plays. The sack on Goff. Then I think it was it Wyatt or just stuffing the run and then stuffing it again. Just imposing their will on an offensive line. Detroit, you could tell, missing some of their interior offensive linemen. That's a group that was missing some guys. You would expect that, and I think the Lions are hoping and expect that it'll get better. But if you're the Packers, you take advantage of that, and you go after it, and you attack it, and that's exactly what they did. I can't say enough about what this defense did overall. the run defense, the pass defense. Nate Hobbs didn't play in this game, but this is what Jeff Hafley wants to do, and we got to see it. Getting after the quarterback, pressuring the quarterback, collapsing the pocket, doing it with 4 or 5 guys, and dropping those extra guys in coverage. We didn't hear a whole lot about Keyshawn Nixon, even like Carrington Valentine a ton. We didn't hear those guys' names, and that's not a bad thing. But the job, it all started up in the trenches, and the job that those guys did was amazing. And the game plan and the game calling by Jeff Hafley was awesome. And again, credit to DeMarcus Covington for getting that group ready to go. But boy, that Micah Parsons running down Jared Goff, that play, think you could that displayed the speed, the athleticism that he has. I know Jared Goff is not the fastest dude in the room, but that play, it's like you don't see Parsons right, and all of a sudden he just like comes through the line. And I think it was Matt LaFleur after the game described it as kind of like a shooting star. I mean, the dude just bursted through. But we saw it how many different times where he was affecting that game. And it improved. In my opinion, it helped out the other guys too. We talk about it, the trickle-down effect. I thought it was interesting before the game too, or at the beginning when Nance and Romo were talking about how Dan Campbell was saying, they were glad that Kenny Clark's no longer in the division because of how much, of an effective force he was on the defensive line and such. That Kenny Clark was, yes, a big loss in that, but Green Bay, they really dominated. They dominated that up front. They wanted to be a more physical team this year. They showed that in week 1. Let's see if they can keep it up. Got a big test, quick turnaround Thursday against the Commanders too. Jane Daniels, a little bit more mobile. Let's go to the offensive side of the ball here. So yesterday, the Packers offense, 27 points, jumping out to a 10-0 lead in the first quarter. Not a bad way to open up the game on the opening drive, and going 12 plays, 83 yards, taking a little over 5 minutes, a little over 5.5 minutes off the clock, going into a 7-0 lead. You force a 3-and-out right away. Then you get the field goal there. So Packers offense, I look at it, and if you're just doing box score scouting and that, and you're like, oh, Jordan Love didn't throw for 200 yards or anything like that. 16 of 22, $188, 2 touchdowns, finished with a rating of a 128.6. Jordan looked really comfortable to me. Outside of back-to-back poor decisions from Jordan Love, it was those stretch where, he threw the pick 6, but it got called back. And then the throw before, tried to throw it to Tucker Kraft, but really was behind him, and luckily the linebacker dropped it. Outside of those 2 bad decisions, I thought Jordan Love was pretty darn good. I thought he was pretty darn good. He looked comfortable. He looked confident. Josh Jacobs, there just wasn't a whole lot to run there at the beginning. Dude grinded it out, though. 19 carries, 66 yards, got that rushing touchdown. Receivers, Jordan spreading it out. Romeo Doubs, to me, he showed more emotion in this game than I think we've seen in his entire career. With his 2 catches, that dude was pumped up, especially on the long one. I mean, the first one too. Romeo Doubs, I can't remember the last time we saw that much emotion from Doubs. And if you kind of follow along on Packers social media and see some of those videos, he's pretty answering those fun questions and that. He's like, yeah, pretty dull. But that dude, he was displaying some emotion yesterday. I mean, maybe the most emotion we've seen since he was upset on sidelines last year and that one game, and then ended up leading to a suspension because he didn't show up to practice, kind of ghosted them and such. Jaden Reed with the foot injury. They had him on a punt return too. So, I thought he looked good. Tucker Kraft getting a touchdown early. Matthew Golden getting a couple catches. Dontavian Wicks, a guy who struggled with the dropsies last year, had a nice in the over the middle catch in between traffic, spreading the ball around. Jordan's first 8 completions were to 8 different receivers. Got Savion Williams even a little bit of a rep on an end around. So offensively, thought it was solid. But I got to give a ton of credit to that offensive line. Especially, they had to plug in some different guys. Now, I haven't seen any updates on Zach Tom's injury or Aaron Banks. But you saw Kennard get in there. You saw Anthony Belton get in there. So I feel like that group, that offensive line group, really did a fantastic job considering there were some moving parts in it throughout the game towards the end of the game. I thought they were awesome. And the protection that they were able to provide for Jordan Love. You're talking about 0 sacks, okay? 0 sacks on Jordan Love. And what was it, just 2 quarterback hits? Yeah, 2 quarterback hits, no sacks. Considering the other guys they had to shuffle in and guys played. And I noticed, Sean Ryan and Jordan Morgan were kind of splitting some snaps over there at right guard and that. Man, I got to give a ton of credit, and that's a ton of credit. If we're going to give a ton of credit, which we should, to Covington for getting the defensive line ready to play, ton of credit to Butkus, Coach Butkus, for getting that offensive line ready to go. But to see those guys, like a Zach Tom, who it looked like friendly fire, was on that pick 6 that got called back, but Hutchinson blowing up Jordan Love that ended up taking out Zach Tom and landed on his hip. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Apparently he was trying to, on the bike, and that he landed on his hip. Maybe just hopefully a bruise or something like that. We've all kind of probably got our legs taken out from under us and landed on a little bony butt of ours and that. Hopefully it's nothing too serious. Not really sure what's going on with Banks and that, but again, especially with a quick turnaround, hopefully they're okay. But you got to give credit to the offensive line for stepping in and other guys stepping in and playing well, especially Kennard. The acquisition from the Philadelphia Eagles, who we didn't see him at all. Didn't really know what to expect from him. He comes in, gives him a couple nice series. Does a nice job blocking, especially in the running game. So offensively, was it an offensive explosion? No, it wasn't an offensive explosion. Outside, the one drive where they had 2 plays and that. But, man, you build upon that now. You keep going. But the offensive line, the job they did, and it sure seemed like Jordan Love was pretty darn confident and he was pretty darn comfortable out there. Outside of those 2 bad decisions, and let's call it what it is. Got lucky on the pick 6 that there was a holding penalty. Got lucky because that instantly could have turned the game around too. Got lucky on the throw before that it wasn't a pick because he was probably gone. But you need a little bit of luck when it comes to sports too, right? We all need a little bit of luck. And, I will say too, special teams-wise, we're breaking down kind of each group. Beginning-wise, had issues with penalties, right? Especially on the first parts of the game. Nice returns being called back because of penalties. Got to clean that stuff up. Opening kick, you had a penalty right away on Bo Melton for holding. That stuff, unacceptable. When you have good starting field position in a shorter field, we can't be taking that away from stupid special teams penalties. That stuff's got to knock it off. But Daniel Whelan, boy, does that guy got in the leg, huh? We've seen it for the last couple of years. He's coming off the extension. You want to talk about flipping the field, especially on that punt before the end of the first half. Okay, Green Bay gets the interception. Then they're not able to get the first down, and they got to punt it away. And you hear Romo on the telecast saying, this punt's got to go out of bounds. You can't let this guy return it. It can't be down the middle. You can't do it. You can't do it. All Daniel Whelan does is just jack that thing like 60-plus yards. And then newcomer to the team, their new linebacker, Nick Niemann, with a great tackle. I mean, the coverage unit gets down. They force him to kind of go back and forth. They took, 16 seconds off the clock and a punt? So, I mean, the coverage there was awesome, but Whelan really showing off his leg. 3 punts, $164. He averaged 54.7. His longest was 65, and 2 of them went inside the 20. Cha-ching. Cha-ching. A couple texts here before we got to take our final break before the first hour. Because there's Mike Silver from The Athletic was in Green Bay yesterday covering the game. And I've been able to read a little bit here. But there's an interesting nugget from Mike Silver about the Parsons trade and going back to the Khalil Mack trade. Interesting nugget that I want to bring up here. But he was in Green Bay for the last couple of days and covering the game yesterday. And he's got a new piece out that was just released through The Athletic. And I was scanning through it this morning, and I thought this was an interesting little nugget about the Micah Parsons trade. So I'll just read a little bit here. At a board of directors meeting in early August with Parsons and the Cowboys at a standoff in negotiations on a contract extension, the prospect of trying to trade for the fifth-year edge rusher was discussed. Ed Policy, according to multiple witnesses, was emphatically in favor of the move, viewing it in terms of, if not now, when. The case was further bolstered when Executive Vice President, Director of Football Operations Russ Ball assured board members that the franchise could afford to meet Parsons' contract demands. Quote, "It was clear that this is a new era," said one Packers front office official. There had been moves that weren't made in the past, like trying to trade for Khalil Mack in 2018. Mark Murphy wanted to do it, but the board was against it, and he didn't want to force it on them. This time, there was talk about not taking the fans for granted, even though we all have those years of sellouts and a long waiting list. It was a really good discussion. I thought that was kind of interesting. And then goes on to say, on August 25th, 2 days after the Packers' final preseason game, Goody walked into LaFleur's office and asked how the coach felt about a possible trade for Parsons. The two men had some rocky moments early in their respective tenures, largely centered around Rodgers and the selection of Jordan Love in the first round of the draft. But their working relationship appears to be in a healthy place. All right. Another little cool nugget there. But go back to that Khalil Mack one. The board in 2018, according to this piece, was against acquiring Khalil Mack. And Mark Murphy didn't want to force it on the board. And this quote, too, was from this Packers front office official. This time there was talk about not taking the fans for granted, even though we have all those years of sellouts and a long waiting list. There you go. Fans, you should probably feel a little bit more happy to hear that. Maybe a little annoyed that or upset that it was like that if we take it for what it's worth. Like I oughta. So, who gets your game ball, Packers fans? A lot of you chiming in with different ones. We've had Jeff Hafley picks. You are correct. We've had Micah Parsons picks. You are correct. We've had Rashawn Gary, Lucas Van Ness. Yep. You'd all be correct. If anything, a lot of players deserve game balls from yesterday. Offensive line, yep. Give one to each one of those big guys up there. Give it the defensive line each one. You'd all be correct. But the person that I want to give a game ball to, I want to go with the man that got that defensive line group prepared. And that's DeMarcus Covington, the new defensive line coach for the Packers. Former defensive coordinator with the Patriots, comes over to Green Bay, is the new defensive line and run game coordinator for the Packers. I'm giving him my game ball. For the performance that defensive line did, other guys stepping up in the absence of Kenny Clark being shipped off to Dallas for Micah Parsons, and essentially eliminating the running game from Detroit. I know Detroit was missing some interior line from last year's, in the years prior. They're off the great offensive line. I know that. I understand that. But that group still held David Montgomery to 11 carries, 25 yards. Held Jahmyr Gibbs. I'm sorry for anybody who had Jahmyr Gibbs in fantasy football, because he didn't do anything for you. Jahmyr Gibbs, 9 carries, 19 yards. 14 of those 19 yards came on one run. Yeah, Jahmyr Gibbs got you 10 catches, but only 31 yards. And the constant pressure that they put on Jared Goff. Jared Goff was 31 of 39, but just for 225. That's an average of 5.8. 4 sacks. He was under pressure a lot. 9 quarterback hits. And Detroit, especially in the first half, had some success with that quick passing game. They had to they had to employ the quick passing game because the pressure was getting after Jared Goff. But this was a defensive line. How many times? I don't know if anybody was watching the game or listening to the game or watching to any pregame stuff, and just how many times there was a mention about Packers defensive or run defense probably not going to be that good, or it's big weakness, or hands full. Yes, they brought in Micah Parsons, but no Kenny Clark. It's really going to affect their run defense, and that's the weakness, and that's where Detroit's got to attack it is run the football and get after that run defense. That defensive line rose to the challenge. Devontae Wyatt, Colby Wooden, Stackhouse, Brooks, Gary, Van Ness, Parsons. Even on short passes, just past the line of scrimmage or right at the line of scrimmage, I saw this energy from this team, and it's week 1, so I'm sure there's probably a little bit more energy, just healthy and all that, maybe compared to what it's going to be later on in the season. But flowing to the football, attacking the football, multiple guys going out there to take down the ball carrier. I mean, there were a couple instances where you throw into Jahmyr Gibbs in the flat, who is a dangerous playmaker, especially with the football in his hands. And that defensive front all flew to the football. We knew this Packers defensive line had to play better this year than what they did last year. They bring in a new coach. And maybe for some people, it's like, how much can a position coach really, change the talent or really change the performance overall from that group? And it's only week 1, and I understand it. It's only week 1. We've got 16 more games to go for this thing. A lot can transpire in these next 16 games. A lot can change, good or bad. But in terms of week 1, I've got to give my game ball to DeMarcus Covington for getting that group ready. And think about it. This is a new position coach coming in. He comes in right away, all offseason, preseason, training camp, working with Kenny Clark. Kenny Clark's the leader of that group. He's the veteran. A week before the season, he's gone. You have to adjust now. You have to adjust, and you get Micah Parsons, who is an extreme talent, but you're adjusting from losing a defensive tackle that has been there for how many years, and you've prepared with him being your starter on the interior, and now you got okay, we got to adjust here, and we got to adjust on the fly, and then we got to figure out certain situations when to put in Parsons, snap count, this sort of thing. DeMarcus Covington had a day yesterday, so you could give it to Jeff Hafley, which I would 100% agree with. You can 100% give it to any individual player on that group, and I would 100% agree with you. But I want to give a game ball to Covington in his first game as defensive line coach for the Packers, because he had that group ready. I don't know if he had them fired up with national media or pundits saying, yep, that run defense is going to stink now for Green Bay. I don't know if he used that to challenge his guys, but he had them ready to go. He had them ready to play, and that was super impressive. And I go back to the drive when Green Bay had them pinned down deep in their own territory. And it was that was when Rashawn Gary had a sack too. And I thought, me and Hudson both thought, is that a safety? It was pretty darn close, right? You do that. You follow it up by a stuff and another stuff. I mean, that defense, I texted a buddy of mine, and I'm like, when was the last time? And maybe it's sooner than what I could think too, but I mean, it just stood out to me. Not just the fact that they stopped them 3 times that close, but you could see the aggressiveness, and you could see the physicality, and you could see the speed from those guys. And how they were, I mean, a couple times it looked like, are they going to get a safety in there? They were just flowing to that football. They were being, the instincts, the reads, the physicality. They talk about all offseason, we want to be more physical. We've got to be more physical. They got punched in the mouth last year how many times from teams like Philadelphia or the Lions or the Vikings? Especially those defenses getting punched in the mouth. And they're like, hey, we got to be more physical this year too. You showed it week 1, so this is what I want to see for the rest of the season now. I want to see this team be more physical. Continue to be physical like what we saw yesterday. Be fast. Be athletic. I mean, honestly, I would, if I gave another game ball, I might give it to Luke Butkus too, just for the play of the offensive line, especially since they shuffled in a bunch of different guys towards the end there. Zach Tom goes out. Kennard, who was a trade at the end of the preseason, comes in. I thought he did well. Anthony Belton got some snaps in. Morgan was coming in, flip-flopping with Sean Ryan and that. They had different guys. Josh Jacobs made a special mention of it in one of his post-game interviews. Like, hey, our offensive line had other guys coming in, and they did a really good job, and they did. Position coaches, I think, at times get a little overlooked. It's kind of like, maybe Chris Hook with the pitching. One of our listeners mentioned him. Some of these position coaches, it's like the job that they do to get these guys ready to go and prepare it. Because sometimes it probably falls on deaf ears. You hear the players once in a while says, yeah, I prepare to play every week. And it's like, yeah, okay, of course you have to say that. But these guys sure looked like they were ready to go when their number was called. And that's a credit to the players, and that's a credit to those coaches and those position coaches for doing a heck of a job yesterday. 27-13 victory for the Packers, although it was a little bit, kind of a garbage time touchdown at the end there.
And it's a spectacular garbage time touchdown if you're going to get one.
Yeah, it was an amazing. I was like, oh crap! Like right away when they showed the replay, I'm like, I thought his foot was down that toe drag.
Because you're watching his buttocks.
Yep.
To see when that hit, and you're, that hit. Okay, he's not.
Yep.
There's no. But then you're like, wait a second, that other foot looks like it dots the eye before he hit.
Yep.
And that was a great use of replay right there.
It was.
Because that was, it's end of the game, so it didn't really mean much, but
right.
I think the defense probably didn't want to give up a touchdown.
Exactly.
But
you want to shut it out and not give up, like you said, a touchdown. So,
but you can't deny how great of a catch it was, but again, they they dominated that game.
So let me ask you, who was there before we kind of get to the game itself? I mean, what was the pop like when they introduced Micah Parsons?
Oh, it was amazing. That was a perfect idea. I think it was Jordan Love who gave that idea. It was like, hey, let's announce the defense and then have him come out. And again, this is the first time they've played a season opener at home since 2018.
Yeah.
That is just crazy. I didn't realize
First time
that.
Matt LaFleur had a season opener at home.
And Mike McCarthy was even there.
Oh, that's my next one. I mean, it sounded like they didn't show this on TV, but it sounded like he got a nice ovation too.
I would say he got as loud as pop as Micah Parsons.
Really?
When he came out. I think there was a lot of appreciation.
Good.
But we'll talk more of that. But like Parsons coming out, I think everybody was just waiting for that. You know, just to see him out on the field. And when he came out, it got that crowd jazzed. Now, be it, and I don't know how much they said it on the broadcast, there was a lot.
It seemed like there was a lot of blue
in that stand. I would say rough estimate 70-30.
Okay.
That's it. There was a lot. Even when you looked at any section, you would see like, there's majority Packer fans. But you would see like out of 10 people, you'd probably see about 3 Lions.
Enough for Matt LaFleur to make a comment about it after the game. So.
I loved that. Got to be better.
Got to be better. But, I think that's maybe a bigger credit to the Packers fans who were there to make it that loud if there was that many
I would say,
Lions fans.
Like when he came out of the tunnel, loud. When he came out on the field in that first drive, it was just as loud.
Yeah.
Like everybody saw that number 1 going out on the field, and they just started going crazy.
And then the sack.
Yeah.
I mean, you could just tell everybody was amped up about that. I mean, for a sideline to explode like that, too. So.
Even the sack, like before that, though, like him going in there, he right away made a difference. And I think Detroit really played on their heels when he was out there.
Yeah.
And like they moved him around, they had him in the inside as well, interior, and you'd see him do it. Like it's because you look at Micah Parsons, and the guy's built, I think, like a cornerback. I wouldn't even go linebacker. I think he's built. You look at him like, there's no way this guy can play. And then he just goes in there and he bull rushes guys. He's so shifty. It is amazing.
Well, even that sack, you don't see him until he explodes by him. I think Matt LaFleur said it was like a shooting star. You watch that replay and it's like, where is he? And all of a sudden he's just, boom, he's like squeaks through and he's right there chasing him down.
I honestly think the guy could play any position, on defense. Because we've seen it on the line. I mean, he's basically playing nose tackle when he's lining up in the middle there. Show me a place that he couldn't play on the field with his speed and athleticism.
Don't give him ideas because we saw the Preston Smith, corner thing from a couple of years ago.
But I think he could do it. I think he's that fast and that dynamic of a player. So, it's like one of those guys you've seen in games, but now that he's on the team that you watch primarily, you're paying more attention. And the nice thing about being in the press box, I brought my binoculars up there when I would see him out on the field. I would just key on him. Yeah. And you see him just, like, the first play he was in there, he disrupts the pass. And there was a couple of those where he didn't get the sack.
I mean, the interception is because of his
pressure. And that was one of those plays where I just, had my binoculars on him, and I'm like, oh, he got to he was shot out of a cannon. Goff had to rush the throw, and you get the interception. He talked about that last week, trying to help out that defensive backfield.
Yep.
And we saw it there. So, week 1 review, an A+ for Micah Parsons, for a guy who played, 30% of the snaps?
I was going to say, got a few more towards the end there where I'm sure some people are like, why are you playing him? But honestly, he hasn't played football all year, so it's probably good to get a few more reps in just to get him in football shape.
No preseason. He was holding out. So, and then, just hearing him talk after the game and holding court, it very much reminded me of a Charles Woodson. Everybody's hanging on every word. And it's not like 1 or 2 word answers. It's very, again, when you win, a lot of this stuff in the locker room comes a lot easier to the guys and to the to talking to the press. But it was impressive. He was a guy who was appreciative to be there. And, he said it in his post game. It's like, if I could have been there, just think what happened if I had been there all of preseason and I knew all of the pre-snap reads and all the stuff that they're doing. He's like, watch out. This defense was great today. I think they can be better than they were, and that's saying something against a Detroit team that has had Super Bowl aspirations the last few seasons.
Yeah, and I kind of gave my game ball to DeMarcus Covington, the new defensive line coach, because of not only those rushers, but you prepare as a new defensive line coach. You've got Kenny Clark with you the whole offseason. You know, he's the veteran and such, and then he's gone with this trade. So not only do you get Micah Parsons, you got to get up to speed. You got to get a new defensive lineman tackle, interior one, up to speed as a starter. To hold Gibbs and Montgomery to 40-some total rushing yards was absolutely fantastic.
Yeah, there was that running game had nothing.
Yeah,
that they really shut it down, and then it made them one-dimensional. And yes, you know, Goff threw the ball 39 times. It was 31 to 39.
Yeah, it was only like 250 yards.
Right, so it was like 5.5 yards per pass, which is great because that means they're doing a lot of dump down passes, and then you're holding them and making them go for it on third down and then getting the stop. I mean, it was a formula, and I said this last night. It was like, if you have a formula for an opening game, it was perfect by the Packers. You come out at home, get the crowd loud.
You score on your first drive with the touchdown.
Starting fast.
Yep.
And then the defense, you have Micah Parsons. And it's not just Micah Parsons. I don't want to single. But I think he gave them a jolt. And I think to a T, those guys know what he means when he's out there. You know, Rashawn Gary, I think, is thankful because now he's freed up a little bit more.
He's got 1.5 sacks already.
Right. The one where him and Van Ness traded, Goff bounced off Van Ness, went to Gary. Gary couldn't get him, bounced right back to Van Ness. We were talking, it looked like Gary knew he gave one up right there, and Van Ness ended up. Is that the one they ended up splitting that one? Or
yeah, I think that's
which they should have.
Yep, exactly. Yeah. But I mean, it's that trickle down effect, right? Yeah. I mean, it was just it felt like Edgerrin Cooper had a really good game, and just everything started in the trenches and worked itself back, it felt like. So. And
their biggest plays were really to Laporta over the middle. And, that was them finding maybe a spot in the – there was one play where, Quay Walker was there, but he expected help, and Laporta rested. But that was it. There was nothing really explosive. It was an uncommon game for the Lions because they – this is a team that's usually boisterous and, has plenty of moxie when they walk out there, and they just kind of seem like they were on their heels the whole game, and the Packers weren't. The Packers knew what they were doing, even when there was that lull where it's like, okay, they might just end up winning this 17-6 because no one's doing anything in the third quarter,
right?
But the defense was still there to shut down Detroit from making any big run.
Offensively, we mentioned, they got off to that start. Jordan Love, to me, just looked a little bit more comfortable.
Yeah.
Confident. I mean, outside of a couple of bad throws that were back-to-back, one of them was the pick six that was brought back, and then the throw before that was
I'm like, you didn't get the interception. Okay, 2 in a row here. Yeah. Let's take a step back for a second.
Other than those 2 throws, he looked pretty comfortable back there and confident with his throws. And then what do we say about the offensive line with a couple guys, Zach Tom and then Aaron Banks, but then they bring in a couple different guys. Jordan Love only had 2 quarterback hits and no sacks.
Yeah. I think that's the key is that, they've done a really well job about putting guys in. They've built up that offensive line depth, and I think that's been something since Gutekunst has been here. Like, you have guys that you're like, oh, this is a bigger name that aren't starting.
Yeah.
But with the O-line, you're going to get a shot. If you're on that roster and you're an offensive lineman, there's a good chance you're getting out there to play at some point. And I think Gutekunst has done a really good job of building up that depth and those guys being ready. That's on the coaching, too, to get out there. And I think, the running game didn't do much in the first half.
Right.
But I think in the second half, most of Jacobs' 66 yards came in the second half, and you could see him starting to run downhill a little bit more. I think, spreading the ball out to 10 different receivers. I think it was 10 different receivers in the first half.
Yeah.
They would throw the ball and be like, okay, there's another one. There's another. Check it off the list.
His first 8 completions were all the different receivers.
Yeah. I mean, that just shows the weapons they have. They can stay healthy. And I think, obviously, number 10, staying healthy is the biggest thing.
Yep.
That offense can just gash people. And it's not the big thing. There were big plays. But it was a lot of just hey, it's a 12-yard completion.
The one drive where it took 2 plays to score a touchdown because it started off with a Dobbs deep pass and then Jaden Reed, to the touchdown there. But after that, it was you're right because, Jordan Love didn't throw for 200 yards. But if you're box score scouting, you're probably thinking, he didn't do a lot. No, that offense was – this is what I appreciate, too. They're spreading the ball around.
Yep.
They're going to different targets.
This is going to be a weird comparison, but when the Badgers – this is going back – Scott Tolzien and the Badgers.
I thought that was the name you were going to throw out there. Yep.
people always want these guys to throw 300 yards, and but when Tolzien was there and they were having some great years, it was 15 of 17, 15 of 19.
Yep.
But just being efficient with the yardage, and then knowing that your running game can get you yards and your defense is going to hold them, I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
I know fantasy people probably want Jordan Love to be throwing for 300 yards, but the only the time I looked, maybe he looked a little, was when he did that scramble up and slid. I think he was trying to avoid maybe like using his hand when he was sliding, so he kind of thought about sliding with his hand to the back, and he's like, "Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't do that." So
I might want to practice that a little bit more.
that looked a little awkward there, but you go up and down. Special teams looked great.
Daniel Whelan, holy man!
Yeah, those punts. I was having like Craig Hentrick flashbacks there of just that 66-yarder.
Yeah,
that was the end of the half, right? That took 16 seconds off the clock. It was 21 seconds left. Detroit would have had a chance to maybe throw one and get into field goal range. The ball was in the air for, I think, 6 seconds.
Yeah.
And then, thankfully, he kicked it so deep that the Detroit returner tried, for another 6 seconds. I mean, field goal-wise, McManus did what he had to do. Kicked his field goals and extra points. So,
well, it was funny because I don't know if you could hear the telecast during that, but Romo kept saying, what you cannot do is punt the ball down the middle of the field against this guy. You can't punt it. You can't punt it down the middle. It's got to go out of bounds. What is it? It's down the middle of the field, but it's so deep and so high that, and then the coverage team with Neiman, the new linebacker, able to chase him down. It was 16 seconds. You're right, took off.
Yeah.
For that one play, you can't do anything.
Then they had to take a knee, and that's the end of the half. So that was, that could have been Detroit getting a little momentum there, and you shut it down. But, I just looked at that again as a formula for starting the season. It really mixed well. It really did. Everything worked out. Now, tough thing is you have that, and now the win helps, but you have a short week.
Yeah, you do.
And you have to prepare for a totally different kind of quarterback.
Yep. And
a totally different kind of team that, watching the Commanders and what they've done, Terry McLaurin didn't even do much in that game, but Debo, as Packer fans will remember, that man is a monster. And if he's healthy, and like the way he looked yesterday,
and a mobile quarterback now, too, with Jane Daniels. So,
this is going to be a different game. I'm not – Detroit's going to be fine.
Yeah.
I think they're a really good team. They came out as a team that just was flat.
Yep.
But Washington is a team that wants to prove that last year wasn't a fluke.
Exactly.
These are some good games. These 2 games to start the season, that's a good test for your team.
Heck yeah.
And, of course, Micah Parsons being a former Cowboy, very familiar with Washington and that rivalry. So
wonder if they're going to pick his brain a little bit, maybe.
I would think so.
Yeah, I would think so,
You can bring Mike McCarthy in.
Ooh. I didn't even think of that, but yeah, you're right. So, we're going to get a press release that Mike McCarthy's hired as a consultant.
I thought it was, getting back to that, that was a really cool moment. Like, they brought out the 2010 team, the Super Bowl team, and, he was the last guy introduced. And the crowd went nuts.
I wish they could have, because I was really curious to see what the reaction was like.
I think that's awesome.
Yes.
That's obviously it's been, 5 years?
Yeah.
6 years? Jeez, it's been
6 years.
Yeah, I think it was 2019, wasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think so, yeah.
Because COVID was
2020, so yeah.
Yeah, so it was, So, it's been that long. And you get that appreciation. There's always that little bit, and he was fired, so it's not like you should have any bitterness.
Yeah, he got fired halfway through 2018.
Yeah. So how do you have the bitterness for, he didn't leave.
Right.
He got fired. And, for him to come back.
I was just going to say for him to come back, too, and, I know obviously he was there as a coach. But,
and I believe he still has a house in
He moved back.
Too. Yeah.
Because he's on, I only know this because he's on Pat McAfee now every Thursday, and I saw a clip of him saying, just casually mentioned when we moved back to Green Bay. I'm like, oh, he's back.
See, that's that's neat. So he's a guy who has his roots in Green Bay, and now, I think that's really cool. So that was a special moment. It made me feel old when they were announcing that whole team, and I'm like, shouldn't these guys still be playing?
Well, Aaron is.
Yeah, there's one guy still playing. But it's funny because I'm looking at it, I'm like, a lot of those guys were drafted during my first years there. Like when Scott Wells came out, I'm like, I remember, vividly when Scott Wells was drafted.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, I'm old.
Yeah. Well, I think it's, I know we're running a little behind here, but even going to the Micah Parsons thing where it was reported that Goody talked to Mike McCarthy about Micah Parsons to kind of get a little bit like, okay, what's the guy like? McCarthy didn't have to do that.
No. I mean, he got fired.
Yeah, he got fired by Goody and Mark Murphy. He could have been like, I ain't helping you.
Right.
The fact that he did that, but then also the fact that the organization, like, hey, what we saw yesterday, what you got to see yesterday, and apparently him and Goody have a really good relationship. I think that's pretty cool.
I think, and then you look at it, remember when he got fired, they still let him come back and address the team. I think it was one of those things where maybe there was more mutuality to it than we, just being fired. Mm-hmm. Maybe it was time for a change kind of thing, and they both realized it. Mm-hmm. So I think that maybe makes it a little easier when you bring in somebody. You get him come back like that. Because he's a legend. He led him to a Super Bowl. He's a Super Bowl winning coach.
Yep.
He's always going to be that with the organization. So it's really cool to have him kind of come back there.
And especially since he's probably going to be living there for the foreseeable future,
right?
Too.
I mean, if he decides to go back, he'll get another shot. I don't see.
You think so?
I think so, because it's not like
does he want to? That might be the question.
Like, he's probably still getting paid a ton by Dallas, or got paid a ton. So that's the whole thing. Is like a lot of these guys. Like think like a Steve Mariucci. He was rather young when he got out of coaching.
I think he's probably getting a nice paycheck from his appearances on that Pat McAfee show, too.
Exactly.
So
does that mean him and, like, Rodgers could, like...
Well, remember, AJ's under, too. So
right, yeah. I was wondering if it was going to be, like... That could be awkward with, like, one box you have Rodgers, the other one you have McCarthy.
And then AJ just doing whatever he's doing right there.
What he always does, just there.
Yep. So
the human screen saver.